Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2026 continues. The future of work, meaning is the new money. Because meaning is simply the greatest motivational force on earth. But 68% of the global workforce is disengaged, leaving $9.6 trillion in productivity on the table every year. Gen Z, the canary in the coal mine, is exposing structural failures everyone else learned to ignore, rationalize, or endure. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and designing solutions that solve real problems. This podcast delivers boots-on-the-ground intelligence, real conversations with CEOs, fractional executives, coaches, and small and medium-sized business leaders navigating the same crisis, mitigating the talent hemorrhage before competitive viability disappears. We go beyond symptoms like engagement scores and wellness programs to focus on the structural failures beneath them. Frontline intelligence, actionable frameworks, hard truths. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. This is your host, as always, Dr. John Dentico. With me this morning is Dennis Meador, otherwise known as DM. Dennis believes that most attorneys are exceptional at practicing law, but when it comes to marketing, they're often invisible, or worse, they sound exactly like everyone else. Every call starts with how much. And the best cases quietly go to a competitor who simply showed up better. And here's the counterintuitive truth that explains why the best lawyers aren't losing to better lawyers. They're just losing to better positioning. Today's guest has spent 30 years proving that and solving it. DM Meador is a marketing strategist who has worked primarily with white-collar professionals, especially attorneys, helping them cut through the noise and build the kind of authority that makes prospects stop price shopping and start saying, I've already been following you, I want to work with you. In 2024, he founded the Legal Podcast Network, a done-for-you platform that turns attorneys into the trusted authority in their market through the power of podcasting. Today, he's here to talk about what actually moves the needle in the attention economy. Good morning, DM. How are you?
Thank you very much, Doctor. I am well. It is 82 degrees here, a little bit of a breeze, so I have no complaints.
Great to hear. By the way, just call me John.
Okay.
I only use doctor when I make dinner reservations. It works every time. Okay, so just call me John. So let's start off with my normal first question, and that is, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? And what were some of the influences in your early life?
So I grew up, the first part of my life, my dad was in the Air Force. So we moved around a lot. I think by the time I was 7, I'd lived in 9 states, several different places, 6 months here, a year there, that sort of thing. After that, my parents, we moved up to the Midwest, a place called the Quad Cities. Davenport, Bettendorf, Iowa, Rock Island, Moline, Illinois. It's about 3 hours south and west of Chicago. And moved there when I was 8 years old. My parents actually then went through a divorce. And a pretty big influence. My mom kind of chose a party lifestyle, but she had custody. So we spent the next 5 years in some interesting situations, drive-by shootings, police raids, just kind of a whole crazy chapter of my life that I was in but not involved in, right? And then after that, I moved in with my father, and that was when I kind of began, although I would say as a younger, I really had to figure out how to make money for me and my sister to be able to eat. It was at 14, I kind of had my first entrepreneurial undertaking. I've been a serial entrepreneur off and on my whole career. Not every single thing I've done has been entrepreneurial, but for the vast majority of it. And even when I took a quote unquote job or a position somewhere, I treated it as I'm a partner in this company. Like what I'm doing is a partnership in what I'm bringing. So that's my background is, just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I've learned very quickly to be able to assess situations and adapt and, grow or overcome those situations. I also had a parallel career starting when I was 16 to the time I was almost 36. I think it was maybe 34. I was a pastor, as a youth pastor, as a missionary. So I always had my own business. And then I also had a ministry because most of the churches I went to were small. And if they could afford to pay you, it wasn't very much. And having lived in poverty, one of the rules I had in my life is I'm never going to be poor. I refuse to be poor. And so I would just go in and say, listen, I already make my money. I make it in a somewhat passive way. I've got a little business. I have to spend, maybe 10, 15, 20 hours a week, sometimes more. Being younger, I could have run, a full-time business, a part-time business, a full-time pastorate, and be with my kids. Of course, I didn't sleep much, and that affected me long term. But so I kind of had that like leadership background, that speaking background, that entrepreneurship background. And then I've been in media and marketing since I was 18. And most of the businesses actually every company I've started in my adulthood has had to do with some sort of media, marketing, sales, something in that venue. I have primarily worked with attorneys since 2003. That's when I really jumped in and I was like, this internet thing is not going away. I'd been selling $500 websites, $2,000 websites, getting people on the internet. And then I got recruited into a company that was selling to attorneys. And I realized that A, there was some good money there, but B, and more importantly, it was a personality fit type. I like to sell with logic and reason, not with emotion and manipulation. So for me, working with professionals, I didn't have to say things like, imagine if I brought you 3 new clients, would your wife be able to get that piece of jewelry that she wanted? Would you be able to take your kid, that sort of old school sort of sales manipulative tactics. I didn't like those things. But like with attorneys and other professionals, they would say, nah. And I'd say, well, have you considered this? Well, yeah, but what about this? Well, think about it this way. And illustrations and logic. And, eventually, not every time, obviously. If it was every time, I probably wouldn't have to stand behind a mic right now. But more often than not, they would say, you know what, that makes sense. Let's give it a try and work together. So I started working in the legal industry, started working in the digital marketing industry. I've had success mostly, I've had some social media, SEO companies, website building, done a little of this, a little of that. 3 companies I've worked with take from under $1 million to 3 to 5 million in 1 to 3 years in revenue. So, it's been a journey, but this right here is probably what I hope to be kind of the culmination of what I built and the things that I built all these years in starting the legal podcast here now about 2 years ago. Here we are. 2 years ago, it was me, my VA, who from the Philippines, who's still on my team now. She manages several other VAs in the company. And then I had another individual who was doing kind of like piecemeal work for me. Now I have a whole team of 35 people underneath him that are doing all the digital, the editing, all the video stuff. 2 years ago, me and 2 other people, now here in no clients. Now here we are 2 years later, 225-ish clients and 65 people on the team. And, we did 7 figures our first full year. We'll do multiple 7 figures the second full year. And I'm really excited to see what's happened from it. And it's really been born out of more of the philosophy behind what we're trying to accomplish than the quote unquote features and benefits of what we provide.
Well, congratulations to you. No question about it. I mean, you really, and I've learned something a long time ago, and that is everything you learn never goes to waste. It's all adds up in the end. A
Yes.
piece here, a piece there. It all sort of makes sense when you bring it together in a particular perspective, which it sounds like you've done. I want to ask you this question, and I want to focus a little bit on some of the things that you've said. And that is, you said the best lawyers aren't losing to better lawyers. They're losing to better positioning.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bold statement. Okay. Unpack that for the audience. What does better positioning actually look like in practice? Yeah, I think that certainly mirrors exactly what I've learned about podcasting. I've been doing it now for 4 years. And I started with solos. I did about 16 or 17 5-minute solos with motion graphics in the background. And then I decided, I think it was the beginning of the end of 23, that I needed to get into much more of the interviews, just like we're doing here now. And I've really enjoyed that. I've learned so much. I tell people all the time, I probably learned more than my guests or my listeners have learned. And it's changed me. It's altered me in terms of the way I think about things, or the way I sort of approach it. I want to ask this because it just kind of spurred something in my mind, something that I'm doing right now. I'm just curious to see if you are tracking with this. One of the things I'm working on, as I mentioned to you just before we started this, is this field manual. Part of that field book is I took 18 podcast interviews, and working with AI was able to reduce those to some very, very important salient points, different kind of streams of thought, if you will. And that's becoming part of this field report, in addition to external sources like from Gallup or from Development Dimensions International, places like that. Are you in any way, when you counsel attorneys in terms of positioning,
Mhm.
are you in any way moving in that direction? Are you looking to take content and turn it into some level of PDF or printed form? I'm just curious.
Yes and no. One of the things that we do, I'll just kind of like framework this for our product. So we do a turnkey done for you product. So we actually have content writers who write out the questions based on our client's ideal client profile. Our clients are typically not the hosts of their own show. They're actually the guests of their own show. And we provide a host for them that are professional hosts that have been doing this for years, to have a conversation with them, to ask them 7 to 10 questions that fit their ideal client. We then take that approximately 15 to 20 minutes. We say 17 to 21, but we take that 15 to 20 minute podcast. We do the editing, the skins, we do all the stuff to make it look good. But then what we do, we then go to, that's where the work begins. When I first started, I built the video, did all the production, and like I have people on my team that have produced iHeartMedia and Spotify. They did Stephen King's podcast, Michael Cohen's podcast. Like these are like industry leaders that I've got doing the production on for these podcasts. And like the attorneys are like, this looks great, like the editing's great, this is great. And then I would give them 3 ancillary pieces and say, here's 3 videos that are like seminal moments. Now there you go to work. And I had all these attorneys that are like, okay, I put it on YouTube. What do I do now? So then I was like, okay, we need to do more. So with AI, like you said, we've 10x that. We actually create for every podcast 30 pieces of content, 10 video moments, 10 audiograms where you kind of rip a piece of audio, put it over a static piece, and then 10 static posts. We actually place that for all of our clients, but here's where we're going to answer your question, which is we also take the transcript and we turn it into either a blog post, an FAQ page, or a recap with the actual podcast, and we place it on their website. So we're creating FAQ content for the website. So content is great, John, but here's the thing. LLMs, large language models, are built off the FAQ like sort of structure. They question, answer, question, answer. So when you build content that is very specific, that is question, answer, you're future proofing and present proofing your content because these models are feeding off of this. And now you're becoming a trusted source for these models that they can cite, so that when somebody asks a question in your marketplace, they'll say, well, here's a local attorney who has a 3-minute little video clip and a full podcast just on that subject, or a page on their website. So absolutely, like taking podcasts and disseminating them, breaking them up, repurposing them, using creativity and putting and getting more from them. This is really what got me excited about doing this, because now it's like we're hitting social, we're hitting LLMs, we're hitting SEO, we're hitting podcasting, we're hitting YouTube with their own YouTube channel. We're hitting shorts and reels and 10 different social media channels that we do, from TikTok to Instagram to Pinterest. And so we're just like, take this podcast and make it and multiply it and stack it and take 1 hour of your time every 2 months and get 2 months worth of marketing out of it that is custom, because it's all comes from you speaking and talking. So absolutely, repurposing a podcast can be done in multiple many ways, and it can benefit you and your ecosystem of content that draws the right people to you. It can benefit you tremendously. Don't just leave as is. There's so much more there.
So interesting. I saw a statistic the other day. I was actually investigating a statistic about the number of people who started podcasts. I think the
Hmm.
number, if I remember correctly, was somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5 million podcasts. It's just like 90% of the
Never,
podcasts
90%
that's,
never make it past 5 episodes.
yeah, I saw it was a three, but you're right. And then the rest, the other 90% don't make it
Yep.
past episode 20. And then there's another interesting little statistic. How many make it past episode 100? And the
That's
answer
probably a
is
fraction of a percent.
2%.
Okay.
2% actually make it because it's a lot of work, as you well know, and you got to hang with it. You got to stay with it. And what I've learned from my own podcasting is now I have a repository of some really great content. I have a
Hmm.
lot of great content that I can call up. And it's part of this, what I call boots on the ground proof or boots on the ground reality to this volume that I'm building right now. And it's been very, very interesting to see how it all converges, how it all works together when you kind of get it there. But let's do this. Let's move on to another question if I can. Let me ask you this. If someone in our audience, a leader, business owner, professional, is still relying on referrals or word of mouth alone, what's the one thing they should stop doing and the one thing they should start doing right now?
They should stop thinking that referrals alone are enough. 83% of people solely use the internet to find their attorney now. I always use this illustration when I was talking to people. I'd say, listen, right now you're fishing from a stock pond that's not being refilled. Turn around, there's a lake behind you. Now it might not be quite as easy to pull them up, but that's I cannot tell you the number of conversations I've had with attorneys in their late 60s, early 70s, even to their 80s. The legal field attorneys, they're one of the longest. Like, you would think they all retire by 50. It's supposed to be high pressure and they make a ton of money. These are the stereotypes, right? But if you actually look at like longevity of career, attorneys are like the highest. They basically do it until they die. They're like, I mean, like pastors are like that. They pastor till the day they die. Attorneys tend to be like that. And I cannot tell you the number of attorneys that I've talked to over the past 10 years or so where they're, like I said, late 60s, 70s, even in their 80s. And they're saying things like, yeah, like all my referrals are dead. All my resources are gone. So I just kind of like keep my shingle out and I'd love to have a case. And like, honestly, I need a case, but like I have no way to get it. And so I would say don't put yourself in a position like you're depending. Like, would you depend solely on somebody else to write like your closing argument? Like, would you literally just be like, here, write this for me, and I'm just going to walk up in front and do word for word? Like, you would edit it and look at it. Lawyers are so independent in so many areas, yet they become dependent in some areas like that. That's what I would say. Stop thinking that that's enough. I mean, unless you're just like in a place in life where you're just taking a case here or you're taking a client there, and it's just more so you don't like get decrepit and like, you want to keep the muscles moving. So you just kind of keep it going. But if you're really in a place where you need to have a sustainable flow of cases or you want to grow a caseload, you need to understand that that's not enough. What would I suggest they do? I would suggest that they find and start building an ecosystem. And an ecosystem is just the sum of the whole, but they all feed off of each other. What I tell people is like, we're not a podcast production company. We are a marketing ecosystem that puts podcasting at the center and it empowers the system that we build with the shorts, the reels. We now have streaming TV. We're now getting into guest matching with the social media, with the website content, with like, why are we doing all of this? All of this stems from 20 minutes of an attorney talking, and yet we're chopping and doing all of this because we're building an entire ecosystem around it. So if I were telling an attorney what to do, I'd say, start building an ecosystem. Where do I start? You could start with a website. You're about 10 years behind, like where everybody else is, but that's at least a place to start. Oh, I have a website. It's not doing anything. Are you doing SEO? Or are you providing custom content? Then you need to get into a content plan because we are now in, and everybody says it, and I hate to be cliche, but we're in an attention economy. And if you can't get people's attention in the one place they spend at least 5 hours a day on, which is their telephone. What are you doing? Like, this is where people are. Like, they're in their phone asking questions, researching, finding out what their situation. And again, attorney, professional, whatever you do, start building an ecosystem. I'm partial to building your ecosystem with a podcast because it's a continuous flow of content. It keeps you in your element. You're positioning them as the expert and you're just talking about it with them so you can provide value to your core client outside of your core competencies. So that's one way to do it. So there's so much, and that's why I'm so big on podcasting, is because it's not just get a podcast, get 1 billion followers, get $100 million contract from Spotify, go move in next door to Joe Rogan and be a super podcaster. No, get a podcast because you want somebody locally who has a problem, who has a pain point, who's searching for answers to come across your content, whether it's through a search or it's through social media, because the way the algorithms all work now, I click on one video about divorce. Guess what I'm going to see in my feed for the next week? More videos about divorce on my social media, because that's how all the algorithms work. They're seeing what you're interested in. What are you clicking on? What are you engaging with? What videos are you watching 78% of the time versus 42% of the time? Okay, well, we're going to give you more 78% videos than we are 42% videos. So you have to get into this ecosystem, and whether it is through podcasting, through content in whatever way, that is what I would tell them, is start building an ecosystem that's going to feed off itself and feed your firm or your business.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference. I've seen some stuff now, for example, on LinkedIn, where they're switching their algorithms for more of a, let's call it, content-based methodology rather than. And so, for example, let me just contrast it a little bit, and you can take it and run with it. And that is this: there's a difference between visibility and content. That's really an important piece. There's a difference between visibility and content. And, people have visibility. YouTube is full of visibility. But the question becomes, what are you providing? What is the content that you are, in fact, providing to people? I'd love to get your reflection on that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think this has been the beauty. Like, TikTok just changed the game. We don't want to admit it because the kids were the only ones on it when it came out a few years ago, but TikTok, the algorithm changed the game. That's probably about 2 years ago. My cousin was on it, and he's a few years younger than me, but he's like maybe in his early 40s now. And I said, dude, why are you on TikTok? What are you, like 12? Are you doing those silly dances like all the kids? And he's like, no, what's cool about it is if I watch a video, then my feed is just those videos. So I only look at the things I'm interested in. I don't have to click on my friend's page to be nice to them, and then it just shows up all the time. If I don't show interest in that, then it doesn't kind of come back. So the algorithm changed tremendously. And because TikTok took so much market share so quickly and grew so quickly, then Instagram kind of changed and they put in the For You page. Then Facebook changed and now they're doing that. Now LinkedIn has changed and they're realizing that action is not as important as interest. And action does not result in consuming. And that's, at the end of the day, they just want their product to be consumed more. They're like any other business in history. We cannot blame them. We can't be like, oh, you poisoned our minds. That's like getting mad that we got fat because we ate food. It was there. It's a consumable thing. They want more. They want us to consume more of it. So TikTok finally went, well, wait a minute. It's not like, share, comment. It's not fill your feed full of your friends' stuff. It's what are they actually clicking on? What are they on LinkedIn? See more. You see the rest of the writing. It's when they click on the video, how long do they stay on the video on average? So I have videos that have 2 likes, but yet thousands and thousands of people watched it. And I serve attorneys primarily, so they don't share and comment. They're they don't want people to know what they're liking. I don't know. But and I'll look and it's a 47-second video and the average watch is 42 seconds. So it's not like they're even clicking on it and this sucks. And then they're just going on to the next thing. They're watching it almost fully to completion, but yet On top of that, LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram have started saying, okay, let's give them what they're saying at the moment they're interested in instead of what they told us they wanted us to give them when they clicked follow. And after that happened, we went from 2 hours on the phone to 5 hours on the phone. Boom, just like that in like 3 years. Average phone usage. Same basic phone mechanisms. I mean, yeah, iPhone's changed in the last 5 years, but it hasn't changed that much in the last 5 years to where we should now be at double, almost triple consumption there. And so that is why with like you talked about with the algorithm and things like that, you have to provide content and be in the system because when someone in your market, because what do these algorithms want to do? They want to provide local, relevant, interesting content. Like that's their goal. Because if I can solve your problem, then you're going to stay here. You don't have to go anywhere else. So if TikTok can find me my dentist, TikTok will find me my dentist if they can figure out a way to do it. If, Instagram can find me my lawyer, Instagram will find me my lawyer if they can figure out a way to do it, because then I don't have to go off platform. So what we're doing now is by creating content and being specific with it, we're putting ourselves in a position we don't have to have 50,000 followers of our page in order to get 50,000 views of a video or even 500 local views of people that might need our services of our video because it's local, it's relevant, and it keeps it entertaining enough to captivate people. So that's what we're building for now. We're not going, well, how many Facebook followers do you have? Like you used to hear even a year or two ago, people brag about their followers. I have over 2 million followers across all platforms. Now everyone's like, who cares? What are your views? How many of those people actually become clients? And to me, like I always say, that's the ultimate stat. At the end of the day, you could have 1 million impressions, but if you get no clients, what do you do? So like all of these things are opportunities for us to connect at scale and compound trust with potential clients in our marketplace. That is what we're doing with podcasting and shorts and reels and content on our site is we're just trying to get in the game to differentiate ourselves. And what we do for our clients is we try to niche down as much as possible because I would rather you own the niche of divorced dads with high assets in the Atlanta metro and get all 25 of those cases every year, and then divorced dads that want to make sure that they get the lake house and the boathouse and the recreational stuff, or divorced men who want to make sure they get the recreational stuff. Like if I can become this very niche provider for very neat, because everyone's used to now our content, it's all Burger King, have it your way. And yet we're building one size fits all content and wondering why we don't get clients out of it. You've got to niche down into who your client base is, answer their questions, deal with their pain points, give them clarity, build the trust over time. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. Just happened last week. So I live in Belize on an island, San Pedro. San Pedro is what most people call it. It's the town, major part of the town. So about 5 hours of us is a town in Mexico called Merida, Mexico, where a lot of people here, they do their dental. It's like a medical tourism. It's one of the safest cities in all of Central South America, top 50 safe city in the world type place. So anyway, we're here and like my wife got pregnant. Not by accident. It was on purpose, but it was from me. My wife's going to have a baby. So last week we went to Merida and she said, I have 2 doctor's appointments. I want to meet the doctors and go through with them and just see how everything is. It's like, okay. I figured she went on Google, baby doctor Merida. So we go in, we go through everything. We sit down with the doctor and he just starts asking questions. Every question, she just has the answer. Like he doesn't hardly even finish the question. And he's like, wow, you really know. And he's, she's like, I do a lot of research. We come to the end of this. John, I kid you not. The doctor says to my wife, and me, do you guys have any more questions? And my wife's response, no, I've been following you on Instagram for over 2 years. I know exactly how you work. We just wanted to come in and meet you before I started working with you. That's what authoritative positioning does. It starts with the client. It answers questions. It builds trust at scale. It compounds trust over time. So when it comes time for them, they're not going to Google and going, well, who's the cheapest? They're going, I've been following this doctor, this lawyer, this insurance, this mortgage, this real estate, whoever this professional is, I've been following them. They've kept me entertained enough to keep them in my algorithm. They've kept me informed enough to keep me in my algorithm. And now it's time to make a decision. That's my doctor. Like our question wasn't how much per visit, how much is the total for this? Like we didn't even ask about price. We were there because that was the doctor she chose over the last 2 years, cumulatively over social media. And that's what you can do with social media, with podcasting, and podcasting can just fuel the social media. And that's what I'm saying. But you have to have a source to fuel it. Don't just put out generic, today we had donuts at the office, everybody. That's not connecting. Oh, look, I won another award that I paid $3,000 for. That's not connecting. It's when you're answering questions, assuaging fears, like helping people see who you are. That's what building authority is. That's what positioning is. And when people come to you, they're not saying, well, how much is it? They're saying, how do I work with you? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
That's what we're building.
And it's interesting when you're talking about that. The words that came to my mind were content with substance.
Mm-hmm.
Content with substance. It's just, how many political podcasts can you look at in one day? I mean, there's some people that do really well, and there's some people that are terrible. I mean, so they're just, all they're doing is regurgitating what other people have been saying rather than, what's the original? Do you have original content? Do you have an original thought? And if you do, then how do you express it? And how do you make people take, if you will, a step back and say, well, this is very interesting to me. This guy's onto something. And I would like to follow them. I mean, I think that's the first threshold. I would like to know more. I would like to follow them. So I absolutely agree. And go ahead.
Can I just one more thing about that?
Sure.
With like providing content of substance? What most professionals need to understand, and I kind of alluded to this before with the whole build 1 million followers Joe Rogan thing. I'll give one simple illustration, which is this. So going viral is considered to be 1 to 3 million, depending on the platform, depending on variables. But on YouTube, 1 million CPM will pay you 1 to 6,000, depending on the demographic of who's watching your stuff. So let's just split the middle and say $3,500. Now, first of all, how you can get 1 million views on a doctor, lawyer, local, video is beyond me. But let's just pretend something happened. Let's say you get 1 million views. But these people are all over the world. They're not in your market. They have nothing to do with you. They're not interested in your services or products. They just watched it to watch it, right? So then YouTube sends you a check for $3,500. That is not nearly as valuable than if you have 50 local people that fit your client profile watch the same video. Let's say 10 of them call you and 4 of them hire you, and your average fee is $15,000. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but I'm pretty sure 4 times $15,000 would be $60,000. And last I checked, $60,000 into your company is worth a lot more than a $3,500 check from YouTube. So understand that your content and your podcast, and it's different for different things. If I'm a coach and I'm talking about mind frame, obviously I want to cast a wider net, but if I'm a coach for lawyers under 30 who have their own law firm, there's probably only like a few thousand of those. So having this content that reaches more, but our content as professionals, we have to get out of this, like, how many followers, It's more like, okay, understand this. This content is not built for mass consumption. It is built for a certain person at a certain time in a certain place with a certain problem. And when you start to understand that is what your content is about, instead of being able to go, well, look, I had my secretary dump a bucket of water on my head and I got 50,000 views. Okay, how many clients did you get out of that? Well, I don't know. There's like a pretty well-known like TikTok lawyer. He gets like millions and millions of views. And like, it's kind of like they were having a conversation with him. And they were like, so like, how many clients do you get out of TikTok with all that? Because you're TikTok famous. And he's like, oh, I haven't got a client yet. So they're getting little checks from platforms because they're playing the same game that 16-year-olds are playing. Pranks and blah, when they aren't utilizing the real power here, which is building a new way to communicate with potential clients in a way that reaches them when they need it because the algorithms are built that way. And now you can build at scale, or you can build trust at scale, and you can compound trust over time to change the position of how people are approaching you. Because positioning is all about how am I being approached, not how do I make myself appear. It's how do people come to me. And when you start to look at where your client is and how to bring them to you in a place where they're walking in the door saying, yeah, I've been following you for 2 years on Instagram. You're already my doctor. I just wanted to meet you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what this gives us the opportunity for.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think content matters. You always say content is king, but it's the kind of content. Does it matter to people? Is this going to affect my life? Is it going to make my life a little bit better because I'm using you as a doctor? Or, yeah, as I like to say, I'm using you to fix my old car. Those kind of things. I've been following you for 2 years. You've got great ratings. I'd like to know more. Here's my questions. You've answered them. I think I want to do business with you. So I really, really, truly get that. We're getting close to the end here. So let me just ask you one last question, and that is simply, where do you see yourself in the next year? What is your hope for the next year, and what's going on with you in this next year time frame?
So the big buildup, so we have a lot of initiatives internally. I just hired a fractional COO. Just because when you grow so fast, sometimes you don't realize you need something until you've needed it for a while. So I have a fractional COO that just started that's kind of taking over that side because sales and marketing is really where I enjoy. Like I'm not working if I'm in the sales and marketing side of my business. I'm just like having fun. It's like playground. So I want to get back to that hopefully within the next few months, which I think will fuel growth for my company. I think we can grow. We're at about 225. I think we could be somewhere around 350 to 500 clients by this time next year easily. I could be selling triple right now what I am. Like I only have 2 sales guys and we bring on 20 to 30 clients every month. So we're just churning in new clients. We're growing like crazy. So I see that growth. But for me personally, I built this company not so that I would run it. Now I do founder-led marketing, have no problem with that. Go on podcasts, put my face out there, make content. I'm already going to do it anyway. I was a pastor for 20 years. Like I have no problem pumping out 4 or 5 sets of decent content every week. And, it's pretty easy when you just got to get 30 seconds, of readable content. Whereas I used to have to do 45 minutes of speaking content by myself. Baby's due September 15th. I've told my team, my goal is that for the first month or so, I'm completely absent, barring maybe major events. I really want to be, because this is my second chance at fatherhood. I have older children, 26. They'll be 25 and 21 when my next child is born. We learn as we grow. And as I told my children, I say, I hope I was a great father. I hope I was at least a good father or a decent father. But regardless of what I was, here's what I am and here's what I want to be. So to me, this next year is all about preparing to be the best father I can be and have the most impact I can in that very beginning time, to be a part of those first few months of my child's life, being there to care, nurture, but still being able to provide and have creative outlet with my company just on a very, very limited basis. I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking for the opportunity to be gone half the time and double while it happens.
No, I agree. I understand. I wish you the best. It's been a very enlightening conversation this morning, and I'm really pleased to have you here. It kind of makes me take a step back and think about a lot of different things. So I want to wish you the best. I want to wish you, your company, and your wife good health. And thank you so very much for being here this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the privilege, my friend.
This is Dr. John Dentico. Remember, meaning is the new money, but it requires building the structures that deliver it. If today's conversation challenged your thinking or gave you a framework worth implementing, share it with a leader who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and visit throttleupleadership.com for more resources. Until next time, keep throttling up and keep the people at the center of everything you do.